...2023 is going to go down as one of the biggest years in the history of professional wrestling. When it's all said and done, and as we go towards 2024, there's only 3 words that's going to dominate more than anything when it comes to pro wrestling. Never say never. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome to the newly rechristened Never Say Never WrestleCast. I am your ubiquitous host, Big Dame, and I want to thank you all for joining me for an epic episode, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I am back after so many months away. God, it feels good to be back. Yes, and like I said, this is now known as the Never Say Never WrestleCast. It was the Royal Rumble WrestleCast. But then I had to realize that, you know what? With everything that's been going on in wrestling this year, it wouldn't make sense to just call it that. And furthermore, you know, Royal Rumble, of course, sounds like Royal Rumble. And I honestly don't want no smoke with WWE when it comes to IP. So basically, this was a much better name because I feel like it better suits how things are going in the world of pro wrestling right now as of this moment, especially after what took place last night as I'm recording this. It's hard to be surprised about anything when it comes to pro wrestling these days. It's hard for us to get genuinely surprised about anything in pro wrestling, especially when you have not just the so-called dirt sheets, the newsletters, and wrestling websites and wrestling YouTube channels out there reporting on things, but you also got fans on social media being able to talk about all the goings-on backstage, behind the scenes in different wrestling promotions and going on with certain wrestlers. But when I tell you that last night, at the end of Survivor Series WarGames in Chicago, my God, ladies and gentlemen, never say never. So my Saturday night went like this. I was watching the Griot Awards on CBS with my mom. It was a great award show celebrating Black excellence. And I didn't even think about Survivor Series, that was being on. I know the women's WarGames match was pretty decent, but, I didn't catch most of the show because I knew the main talking point was going to be what happens with the men's WarGames match. Because it's supposed to be on one side, you had Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn, Seth freaking Rollins, and main event Jey Uso, Mr. Yeet, you know what I'm saying? And then a fifth person to be determined going up against Judgment Day, that being Damian Priest, Finn Balor, JD McDonough, Dominic Mysterio, and then Drew McIntyre, who made it very clear that he was not joining Judgment Day. He's just there as a part of the team to hopefully get his hands on Jey Uso, since Jey was a part of the Bloodline. And the Bloodline was the one that cost Drew his ultimate moment at Clash at the Castle in Cardiff, Wales, September 3rd, 2022. So obviously he has some real big scores to settle with Jey. But of course, the whole talk was who was going to be the fifth man for Cody's team. And already speculation was running wild on who that could be. And of course, there's been rumors for so many months that Randy Orton was going to come back after his what do you call it, double neck infusion surgery. He's been out of the ring for a year and a half at the very least. And, for him to be able to come back and be able to join that team, I mean, that was massive because he's been told by many doctors that he wasn't supposed to wrestle again. And, for him to be able to come back, I mean, it was nothing short of outstanding. It was nothing short of amazing. Here we are, thinking that this guy, who has wrestling in his blood, right? Cowboy Bob Orton is his father. And of course, he got his grandfather, Randy Orton, being a third generation superstar. Been in WWE since 2002. And that's just a lengthy hiatus. And, you just don't know what to think about whether or not he was able to come back, under those type of conditions, especially since the last time we saw him in a WWE ring, his tag team partner was Matt Riddle, and Matt Riddle is not even in the company anymore. That's to his own undoing, and we'll get to him later. So, anywho, Randy Orton, sure enough, after, all the men in the WarGames match got into the rings, the two rings, we was anticipating who was going to be the fifth man and if Orton was going to come out or if a certain Chicagoan could end up filling that gap. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get to him in just a brief moment. So after weeks of speculation as to who would be the fifth man for the Nightmare team, Cody's team at Survivor Series WarGames, we got the confirmation last Monday night on Raw from Cody himself to close the show, while not outright mentioning his name, that they were going to be joined by a guy who he shared his legacy with. Because, of course, Cody was a part of the Legacy stable along with Randy, Ted DiBiase Jr. And then he also said they're going to be joined by the Apex Predator. And then you look at Jey Uso's face because he knows that he, much like the Bloodline was a big factor in Drew McIntyre losing at Clash of the Castle. He, along with Jimmy, was pretty much responsible for Randy Orton being out of action, at least in the kayfabe sense. So you had to believe he felt like Randy was going to come after him. But it was pre-announced that Orton will be back, so WWE can get ahead of all the chants, seeing that they're going to be in Chicago. It's funny how all of this played out in retrospect, but it's still, it's still interesting to look back at. So, the WWE didn't want to take a chance at the crowd hijacking the whole damn match and chanting the name of a certain Chicagoan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call building up to something. You can skip ahead if you just want to get down to the point, okay? So, here we are at Survivor Series. Let me just tell it to you like this, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said before, I didn't even watch the entire Survivor Series event, but I turned on Peacock just in time to check out the men's WarGames match because I knew that was going to be the main talking point. So, the way the match played out, it was Cody, Seth, Yeet, Jey Uso, and Sami Zayn. And then the Judgment Day and Drew McIntyre, Finn was the one started for his team. Now, every 3 minutes a new member of each stable enters the fray. And then once all five members of each team come into play, that's when WarGames can officially start. So Rollins starts things off, hitting Finn with a suicide dive. Balor tries to go towards Rollins, eats a super kick. He reverses a pedigree attempt and then do a backdrop onto the steel in between the ring. Balor ends up hitting a coup de grace, tries to hit a coup de grace, but then ends up hitting a sling blade. Then, after the first 3 minutes were up, JD McDonough enters, hits Rollins with a kendo stick, and then Balor and McDonough ends up controlling Rollins. Then Jey Uso makes his way in with a steel chair, getting both Finn and JD, but then gets suspended. Each time he hits, the crowd chants, "Yeet!" I cannot believe he got that damn phrase over. Man, it's crazy. It's crazy what one drunk night on the press conference will do for your career, man. Anywho, Rollins and Jay hit double super kicks. Then Drew McIntyre enters, he tried to, but then Damian Priest stops him, being the self-proclaimed leader of Judgment Day, and he heads to the ring himself. And he got a baton. Judgment Day takes control, using their weapons to their advantage. Then Sami Zayn came through, hitting people as they go through the door, smashing Finn's head with that door. Then he pulls out a kendo stick, used that on JD, but then, of course, he pulls out a table. That's when Cole says, "Sammy, get the tables." We'll call back to the Dudley boys. He went on top of the cage, and then he ended up getting a steel pipe, attacking members of the Judgment Day team. But then Drew finally enters the match after another 3-minute interval, dumps Rollins to the mat, throws Zayn across the ring. Then Drew sets his sight on Jey Uso. He can finally get his hands on the man partly responsible for his big moment being ruined in Cardiff. So they go back and forth. Drew wins out with a neck breaker. Drew tried to get him with a claymore, but then he eats a super kick. And then Jimmy and Sammy do a 1D. Then Cody joins. Takes the fight to Damian Priest and JD McDonough. Finn Balor getting dropped onto McDonough. Then, pretty much telling you, pretty much as a tribute to the man who invented the WarGames match, none other than his late father, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes daddy. So Cody pulls out a bull rope. And a nice little callback to his and Seth Rollins' Hell in a Cell match. Remember, that's the match that Cody was referencing with a goddamn pectoral muscle tear. The purple nurple, if you will. So Cody pulls out the bull rope. Rollins grabs it. At first, it was going to be some tension, but then they decided to use the bull rope together. They worked together, put the bull rope on Finn and JD. But then Dominic enters, the last one for his team, the last member of his team. He's attacking all different people of the opposing team. Then he does the Three Amigos, tries to do the Three Amigos on Cody. But then all of his opponents surround him, and Dominic gets the beat down. But the numbers game was still too much for the Cody team, as Judgment Day ends up taking control, with Drew and Damian chokeslamming 3 people at once. Then the other members go to the top rope, hit all these high-flying moves. Seth gets a razor's edge through the table. And then the final 3-minute interval expires. At this point, you expecting Randy Orton, but instead, Rhea Ripley comes out with Priest's Money in the Bank briefcase. But before they can completely cash in, I hear voices in my head. That's right. Randy Orton is back. Randy returns. And the crowd was absolutely electric. So Randy drops Dom with several clotheslines and a scoop slam, as Mike Rome, I believe it was, shouted, "Let the games begin!" Of course, he did his signature drape DDT on Balor. Then he and Drew stare down each other, but Priest ends up jumping Randy from behind. They stomp down on Randy. All the members brawled. Orton encourages his teammates to hit Drape as they all hit Drape DDTs. Then Randy lets Jay know he hadn't forgotten about what he did. But, you know, he was staring at a hole through Jay, and Jay thought, oh, shit, I'm going to get it now. But as they argue, Jay ends up super kicking Damian Priest. Then he follows it with an RKO to Dominic, a stomp from Seth, a splash from Jay, a haluva kick from Sammy. They all connected. Then JD McDonough tried to run away, going up the cage. Seth and Sammy followed him up to the cage, and this is perhaps one of the best RKOs I've seen since Seth himself had his match with Orton at WrestleMania 31. Well, was it? Yeah, it was 31. And then he just, boom, try to give him a super stomp, but then, boom, gets an RKO for his trouble. So, anywho, JD was on top of the cage. Seth and Sammy throws JD off top of the cage. Boom, RKO. Then Damian gets caught in the crossroads. 1, 2, 3, your winner, the Nightmare Team. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a hell of a match. And you think, okay, Orton's back. The Chicago crowd can come home happy. But then, you know what I've noticed when it comes to Triple H-led WWE productions? So recent PLEs have a closing video package recapping everything that happened on the show. WWE got perhaps one of the best production teams in the freaking business, man. It's so crazy how fast they put that stuff together. But anywho, so they recently did that. And usually they would save that copyright bug to the very, very end when you know they're about to fade to black and go on to the next thing if you was watching on WWE Network, or just fade to black and then you sign off Peacock. So, but in any event, it became a Triple H special to have the copyright bug in the corner, and then you expect the show to be over, but nope, something else happens. It happened famously right there in Chicago at NXT TakeOver Chicago when DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, I think they lost a tag team match or whatever, and they were just going up, arm in arm, going up the ramp, and then you see the copyright bug, but then, boom, Ciampa hits Gargano, smashes his head right in that LED board, and that started their famous rivalry, probably the best rivalry NXT has ever had, was Gargano versus Ciampa. But I won't get too deep into that. Then, of course, when it came to the main roster and the copyright thing, it happened again last year with Extreme Rules 2022, in which I believe it was Rollins and Matt Riddle in the fight pit as the main event match. But nobody gives a damn about that. They wanted to see if Bray Wyatt would show up. So then copyright fake out again, thinking that this was the end of the show, but nope. Then Bray Wyatt came back, and man, it's very freaking sad that Bray's no longer here with us, man. When you saw that moment, you felt that, okay, the future was brighter for Bray this time around. They finally was gonna do something meaningful with him, but unfortunately, he would never be able to get that opportunity. Man, it just made me sad just thinking about it. But anywho, so now here we go once again. The copyright bug before the video package, before the closing video package, the recap. The copyright bug appears, letting you know, and then it lets you know that the press conference was coming up on YouTube and all the WWE socials. And then, right as Cody's music was playing, just by those couple seconds, Chicago erupted. The rumors were true. CM Punk is back in WWE. Listen, man. I was at the grocery store getting some ice cream and apple pie for my mom. She wanted, apparently, some ice cream and apple pie. So I decided, you know what? I'll just go ahead and watch the remaining moments of this WarGames match on the go on my phone. Right as I was getting through the checkout line, it was getting towards the end of the show. And then I was like, okay, let me just go ahead and get this stuff here so I can get back home. But then once I heard that shh, my genuine reaction was, what? I literally screamed that. Everybody heard me, especially the guy that was in the back of the line with me. But he understood. You know, being a wrestling fan, you tend to be beside yourself when it comes to certain moments happening. And I mean, it was absolutely, I was like, I cannot believe they did this. They freaking did it. They freaking did it. I wrote off the fact that Punk was not going to be there at WarGames along with many others. I'm sure many of you didn't think he would be there. WWE used every opportunity to try to tell you that this guy was not going to be there, and they had to pre-announce Orton just so you guys wouldn't be disappointed that Punk didn't show up. But after a couple of seconds, going into the Code of Personality music, which, by the way, was just remastered by Living Color. The day they brought that out the day before Survivor Series. And Punk himself was the one that restored that, I guess. You know, he put that in one of his stories. You didn't think nothing of it. But sure enough, that blared. The crowd went absolutely bananas. And there he was. CM Punk. Back in WWE. Something that we all never, ever, ever thought we would see again after 9 years. After the acrimonious way that he left WWE. This was a man that talked all sorts of shit about WWE. We all remember that infamous Colt Cabana podcast in which Punk just absolutely went nuclear on WWE, especially Triple H. Made no bones about the fact that WWE had the nerve to actually fire him on his wedding day. He was getting married to AJ Lee. And, you know, since then, Punk has used every opportunity to talk shit about WWE. Whether it was in a podcast appearance or any time, you know, any other wrestling appearance, just seeing that and also just watching that clip over and over again afterwards. There's a famous quote I want to lay on y'all. I have seen it and I still cannot believe it. Those were the words that Tony Schiavone used to open up what would end up becoming the very last WCW Monday Nitro, March 26, 2001, in reference to Vince McMahon showing up on WCW programming, saying that the fate of WCW was in his hands. That quote is very much appropriate because even though I've seen other content creators, streamers, I've seen reactions to everybody, you know, marking the fuck out about CM Punk coming back to WWE. It's like, I still can't believe it. This man was just in AEW not too long ago. And we all know the story about how that ended. Well, before I get to anything regarding AEW, I got to just say this. Moments like this is why I'm forever a wrestling fan. Like I said in the beginning, to be surprised, to be genuinely surprised in this day and age when, like I said, you have all sorts of newsletters and wrestling YouTube channels and Reddit, Facebook, Twitter/X, all these different sources that break news when it comes to wrestling. For them to be able to still be able to keep this a secret and leave this as a genuine surprise, because I'm gonna tell you the truth. I wasn't expecting Punk back until the Rumble. You know, it would have been very apropos since that was the last event Punk worked before his famous walkout on WWE. That was the last time you seen CM Punk in WWE was Royal Rumble 2014. But for him to just come out right there at the end of Survivor Series, look, say whatever the hell you want about CM Punk, Phil Brooks. We have said our share of things over the last number of years, especially in recent times while he was in AEW. But damn it, you cannot deny it. Whether you're in Chicago or wherever else, you cannot deny that CM Punk is a draw, man. CM Punk is relatable to many people, especially when it comes to being able to express how people are feeling about things. He has a genuineness to him that many wrestlers in this day and age wish they could have. And, you know, I am for one happy to see him back. Now, will he be on his best behavior this time around? Well, this is WWE. The same shit Punk did in AEW is simply not going to fly in WWE. And that's perhaps what Punk needs, is something with more structure. He needs something where he knows, okay, if I fuck up, I'm gone. So yeah, he ain't gonna be doing all the shit that he did in AEW. He's simply not gonna do. And you better believe Punk is on a very short leash. Triple H made it abundantly clear, because it was Hunter, it was Nick Khan, and I'm pretty sure some people in Endeavor /TKO that was involved with Punk coming back. Vince was nowhere involved, just so you know. We should have known something was up when Punk went backstage at a Raw when it was in Chicago, when to try to talk to Triple H, but Vince caught wind of it and had Punk kicked out, because obviously he was contracted with AEW. He's like, hey, you shouldn't be here. But, you know, him and Triple H talked for a bit, and that opened the door to where now they can be able to have a deal, and, shortly after his AEW exit, him and Triple H had long talk. And according to Triple H at the press conference, he said that all of this came at the last minute. All of this came, literally hours before Survivor Series. All of this came together. This is what Triple H said. This was one of those lightning in a bottle moments that came together very quickly, but we are really excited about it. It's been a long time, and in some ways, it has been a long time coming. You can say this about CM Punk. Love him, hate him, positive, negative, whatever you want to say. People talk about him all the time. He's a magnet for that. He is a conversation starter. And for me, if our fans want it, if the WWE Universe is excited to have it, then let's go. And we'll figure out the rest from there. And then he went on to say that, all the heat, all the issues between Punk and Triple H, it seems to be all water under the bridge. This is what Triple H said. If you were the same person that you were 10 years ago, 10 years later, you've messed up. Everybody grows. Everybody changes. I'm a different person. He's a different person. It's a different company. And we're all on the same even starting ground. Then Triple H said, whatever it is, what's next for Punk, whatever it is, it will be a thrill ride for the WWE Universe, and everyone is thrilled to have him back home where he belongs. And then Triple H brought out that picture of him and CM Punk backstage in Gorilla, the famous Paul point, where he likes to point at you. It was pretty much Punk and Triple H pointing at each other. Triple H having the caption, "Mighty Cold Day in Hell," #Survivor Series. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I renamed this podcast Never Say Never, because you can truly never say never when it comes to pro wrestling, man. Think about Bret Hart. When the Montreal screw job happened the way it did, and then he spat at Vince, spelled out WCW, trashed up ringside, and then he actually went to WCW. It became crystal clear that Bret Hart simply was not going to come back to WWF or WWE anytime soon. It took a long time to do, but when Bret decided that he wanted to be involved with a DVD compilation of his matches, and then you saw him and a picture of Vince McMahon, a picture of him and Vince McMahon together while working on this project, I'm like, yeah, he's back. But that was like in 2005 when that DVD compilation came out. Then 2006 rolled around and he gets inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm like, okay, Bret's back in WWE's good graces, but still not actually in an arena. Fast forward to January 4th, 2010, Bret Hart comes back to WWE Monday Night Raw. Him and Shawn Michaels shook hands, and that's when, of course, he started that WrestleMania build with Vince. So that's why I say, man, never say never. The Ultimate Warrior. Everybody knows the issues that Ultimate Warrior has caused Vince in the WWF, and then all the shit that he said about WWF and Hogan and everybody else over the years. I'm like, man, this dude was bitter. But then fast forward to 2014, Warrior came back into the fold. He got inducted into the Hall of Fame. He, Vince, and Triple H had a picture together. Then he showed up on Monday Night Raw and what would end up being his final appearance ever to give a speech. And then 24 hours later, he sadly passed away. Man, it's crazy. But before he could go home to God, he was able to mend fences with Vince. Bruno Sammartino, pro wrestling's longest reigning world champion, and that's going to stay that way. I don't give a fuck what they keep trying to do with Roman. But anyway, Bruno had a falling out with WWF and Vince. Went on talk shows, talking all sorts of cash money shit on Vince and WWF. And you would have never thought that they would never work with each other again. But yet, and I believe this is like the year before Warrior got inducted. I don't know if it was 2013. Please correct me. But he ends up coming back to get his Hall of Fame induction. Of course, now Bruno's no longer with us. Like I said, man, never say never. It almost seemed like the Macho Man was going to be mending fences with WWE. Just the simple fact that he was doing a spot for the WWE All-Stars video game, doing a little trailer for that game. Anytime you seen some of these wrestlers in the trailer for the WWE video game, that's the first step to them coming back into the company. It happened with Brock when he promoted WWE 12. It happened with Warrior. It happened with Sting. Yeah, that's another one. Sting, the guy, the big name from WCW that for years you never thought you would see in WWE, has gone out of his way to let you know he didn't want to be in WWE. But then he ended up being in WWE at Survivor Series 2011. Ultimately, to have a shitty WrestleMania match with Triple H where Triple H went over. And then, he ended up getting a match with Seth Rollins where Rollins buckle bombed him on the barricade and caused Sting's, pretty much in-ring career to be over for a bit. But yeah, he got inducted into the Hall of Fame regardless. Yeah, never say never. So now here we are with CM Punk. I mean, when they say time heals all wounds, that's a true statement. But also, and this is the overarching thing when it comes to all these guys, money talks. Folks, I don't care who you are. If somebody's throwing some substantial money your way, you're at the very least going to listen to what they're talking about. And the money had to be right for Punk to come back to WWE regardless of everything that he has done in the last 9 years, the pot shots he's taken with him, everything, the lawsuit with Dr. Chris Amon that caused his falling out with Colt Cabana. And it's crazy, But again, money talks. And, at the end of the day, this is the wrestling business. And I don't give a damn what you may think about Punk and all the shenanigans and bullshit he's done, especially in AEW the last couple of years. When it comes to business, you're going to always do what is best for business. But more importantly, just what's best for your business. Punk knew that he didn't want to end his wrestling career in freaking AEW. The AEW was just willing to bring him on board after talks with WWE fell through. A lot of people thought when he was on that WWE backstage show on FS1 with Renee Young, a.k.a. Renee Paquette and Booker T. Pretty much, we all thought that was going to be his back door into WWE, but alas, it wasn't. And furthermore, that whole arrangement with Punk and that show was an arrangement between himself and Fox, not WWE. So, man, this is huge. So now that Punk is back, what next? Of course, we got to address the whole thing involving Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, it wasn't on camera, it wasn't on the air, but needless to say, Seth Rollins was not thrilled having Punk back. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the footage by now, fan-captured footage of Seth Rollins throwing all sorts of F-bombs and middle fingers towards Punk, where Michael Cole and Corey Graves, who was already off of commentary at that point, had to hold him back along with some referees and officials. It was heated because Seth let it be known that he does not like CM Punk. We all remember that interview he did talking about how Phil was a cancer, a locker room cancer. I believe it was from Wrestling Inc., if I'm not mistaken. So we asked the question, was it a work or was it a shoot? So both PW Torch and Fightful reported that top talent in the men's WarGames match were pulled aside and to be given the heads up that Punk will appear before the camera stopped rolling. Now, the Torch adds that the belief is that Rollins was actually given more of a heads up than the others because his upset reaction is a part of a developing storyline. While Rollins may be poised to work a top angle with Punk, it doesn't mean he's excited to have him back considering his past comments where he labeled Punk a cancer. Yep, it was with Nick Houseman when he was still working with Wrestling Inc. Now, of course, Nick Houseman runs House of Wrestling. So you better believe they're going to use that as part of the storyline. But once again, getting back to this report, they say there are a few ideas where the direction could go. Now, of course, these include Seth Rollins being the pro WWE babyface, defending the company's stability against a heel CM Punk, or even Rollins turning heel in an overreaction, or it could be set up in a way where fans have to choose sides without either being the clear heel. Then another point was made by the Torch that Rollins sees this as an opportunity to work a true top program in WWE after riding the back seat to Roman Reigns for several years. A red hot angle like this could help elevate him to the top main event level again. So, look, man, I mean, I know what I saw. Seth was apoplectic seeing Punk. Now, the rest of the people, especially Randy Orton, whose own freaking return has been overshadowed by Punk's appearance. He just, typical Randy Orton, sat his ass in the chair inside the cage. And then of course there was fan shot video, CM Punk doing Randy's pose and waving. And then Randy acting like he's looking at his watch and then he waved back. Yeah, that was funny. All the other people in the WarGames match, including the Judgment Day team, and they was just like, oh man, him again. But then it gets crazier. Because Punk could actually be connected to Drew McIntyre leaving angrily after Survivor Series was over. So, according to PW Torch, once again, Drew McIntyre stormed out of the ring prior to Punk's entrance and went in the opposite direction backstage. From there, he grabbed his things from the locker room and then promptly left the All-State Arena. However, it's been said that McIntyre had other issues with how things unfolded on Saturday, leading up to his WarGames match and CM Punk's return. As of early November, McIntyre was telling people close to him that he had not re-signed with WWE, seeing as though his deal is up in early 2024. There's speculation that Punk's return may be a contributing factor to his frustrations and how it possibly affects a new contract. It was also noted that a cameraman was seen giving McIntyre subtle cues on his way out, indicating that McIntyre's abrupt exit might be a work to begin with. Now, his status has been a talking point throughout the year following his post-WrestleMania 39 hiatus that lasted until early July. Despite returning this summer as a babyface, he slowly turned heel again this fall, heading into a feud with Seth Rollins at Crown Jewel. Then came up short in that shot at the World Heavyweight title. Then he aligned with Judgment Day to do WarGames. But it's unclear as of right now what's next for Drew McIntyre and WWE. I don't know. I don't know, how I feel about Drew McIntyre, acting the way he did. I mean, it might be some resentment towards Punk coming back, but at the end of the day, man, look, ain't no telling what's happening with Drew McIntyre in 2024. I hope he stays around in WWE, but considering that, they haven't really done Drew much favors, I can understand the frustration. You pretty much had to ride for the company during the pandemic. You won your WWE Championship in front of nobody at WrestleMania 36 inside the Performance Center against Brock Lesnar. Yeah, I can understand. Yeah, and now and then you got robbed of your moment in Cardiff, and now you just pretty much. I can understand why Drew is a little myth, and it probably had nothing to do with Punk. But, it's really, really interesting that that sort of behavior he exhibited after the event last night. All I can say is we'll just have to see where it goes. And you want to talk about people being salty about the fact that Punk is back. Man, Ryback said that he was going to retire if CM Punk came back. Now, obviously, he had to backtrack on that, saying, I ain't going to retire. No, okay, motherfucker, you should have kept your fucking word and just go ahead and retire. Nobody want to see your ass anyway. And then somebody else had something crazy to say about Punk's return. None other than Matt Riddle. Now, keep in mind, folks, Matt Riddle got fired because of some shenanigans he did at the airport where he was drunk. I mean, it's just crazy. All the other shit going on with sexual assault allegations from the Speaking Out movement, the issues we actually had with Seth Rollins that were legit, all the wellness policy violations. I mean, and then that whole little incident in New York at JFK Airport that led to his police investigation. Failing 2 drug tests with marijuana use and everything. It's just, oh man. That was back when he was in UFC. But yeah, this nigga got the fucking nerve to say on X, hey WWE, you thought I was hard to deal with? Have fun with 0-2 CM Punk. Okay. But much like Punk got himself fired from AEW, your ass got yourself fired from WWE. So you can shut the fuck up, bro. and try not to do anything stupid next time you try to call yourself trying to sign with a wrestling company. How about that? Man. But yeah, everybody was talking about CM Punk. I mean, that's just how he is. Wherever CM Punk goes, he's always known to make himself the topic of conversation, man. And, it's going to be real interesting to see how things are going to go with CM Punk as we heading towards WrestleMania. Will he be involved in the Royal Rumble in some way? And at least out of night 1, will he finally get that main event at WrestleMania that he's always wanted? I mean, think about all the matches this guy can have, man. We obviously know we're heading towards Punk versus Seth Rollins, but you can have Punk versus Cody. You can have Punk versus Orton. You can have Punk versus damn near anybody, and it would be, all the new talent, all the new guys. It would be great to be able to see fresh matchups and fresh opponents for CM Punk. So yeah, I'm pretty damn excited, man. And you better believe all of this going down is going to result in Raw becoming must-see tomorrow night. Just to see if he's going to show up, say some shit, probably take some pot shots at AEW. And, we're going to see where things go with Punk on that night if he shows up. So, yeah, man, I expect a huge ratings bump for Raw come tomorrow night. But now we got to address this whole elephant in the room as relates to AEW. When Punk first arrived in AEW, it was legitimately one of the biggest moments in wrestling history. Because here was a man that was away from wrestling for 7 years. Nobody ever thought that he would even touch a pro wrestling ring ever again at that point. But then we had Tony Khan announce that the second ever episode of Rampage was going to be at the United Center and dubbed The First Dance. That's when everybody knew. And a little hint by Darby saying that he want to face the best in the world. That's when you knew that CM Punk was on his way. And sure enough, that fateful night in August of 2021, Punk came back, and that's going to stand as AEW's greatest moment. I don't give a damn what else they got going on, that is going to be the defining moment of that company, was the fact that they was able to say they brought CM Punk back to wrestling. I mean, now you got something to compare. Which return was bigger? His WWE return last night or his return to pro wrestling with AEW in 2021? Be real interesting to see how a lot of people compare that. But yeah, I remember watching live. I actually recorded a video about it. I mean, it was goosebumps, man. So here I was. I mean, we never thought we would see this man again in a wrestling ring, and there he was in the United Center. So yeah, man, and things were starting off very good for CM Punk, you know. All the encounters he had trying to elevate younger talent, you know. Of course, that classic rivalry between himself and MJF, it was great. You know, MJF, of course, beat him twice in Chicago on a random-ass episode of Dynamite. They had that dog collar match at Revolution. Well, Punk came out to his old Ring of Honor entrance music and his old gear from Ring of Honor. You know, it was a great match. And Punk had a lot of great matches, you know, during that period. But then All Out 2022 happened. Punk was just crowned the world champion from Jon Moxley after that whole little debacle, you know, where Punk got injured and Tony had to do the whole interim shit, you know, with Jon Moxley being the interim champion. And then Punk came back, and then it was him and Jon to find out once and for all who's going to be the undisputed AEW world champion. Punk ends up winning that, and that's when MJF came back with the devil mask. Oh, yeah. Thank God we can finally put to rest that whole devil shit when it comes to CM Punk. We obviously know that's not him. So I bet my money is going to be Adam Cole. That's revealed as the devil when it's all said and done. Most likely at World's End. But, hey, it is what it is on that. But, yeah. But then Punk took it upon himself to go on this huge tirade off of something unprompted as relates to Colt Cabana referring to his real name of Scott Colton. When I tell you it was one of the most embarrassing moments in AEW and hell in all pro wrestling, that doesn't even begin to cut it. This dude saw it upon himself to go on this huge freaking tirade against Colt Cabana and then towards the Elite, saying they were EVPs that couldn't manage a fucking target. Then called Adam Hangman Page a empty-headed dumb fuck. We all saw the post, the media scrum, man. It was just, I mean, we couldn't believe what we was hearing. And the fact that he had to son Tony Khan, man. I'm gonna try to save my energy because I'm really gonna go off in just a moment. Punk did himself no favors, just flat out embarrassing, humiliating Tony in AEW. And then Brawl Out happened. Him, the Young Bucks, Ace Steel, Larry the Dog. We all know what happened. Oh yeah, and Kenny Omega too, trying to get Larry out of harm's way, and then the chair got involved, and then Ace Steel bit. Man, it was just wild, and then all of them got suspended. So you think, okay, everybody should have learned their lesson from there, right? But then CM Punk ends up coming back, and the way that they can be able to separate him and anybody in the Elite, Tony decided to do a brand new show called AEW Collision, airing Saturday nights on TNT with Punk as the centerpiece. And at the debut of that show, Punk came out. He's like, okay, I hope Punk learned his lesson. We'll see what happens from here. Now he got his own show. And for the first few episodes, at least, Collision was markedly different than Dynamite. You know, it had a different feel than Dynamite. And then, of course, what was revealed in that big red bag was the real world championship. Punk put an X in front of it, NWO style with the black spray paint. Put an X in front of the E in AEW in the middle of that championship. I mean, it was cool because he's like, okay, now he's calling himself the real world champion. And, defending that title, pretty much giving Collision its own world title, whereas the real world, every AEW world title can stay on Dynamite and with MJF. So then we go to All in London, where CM Punk would face Samoa Joe in the opening contest. But before that would even happen, there was been rumors going around about Punk having to deal with various younger talent backstage, including one Jack Perry. Jungle Boy Jack Perry, who just completed his heel turn and went against Hook in the All-In pre-show. Him and Hook, I guess it was a Falls Count Anywhere match, a street fight or whatever. And then, when it came to the car and the spot they did on there, Jack Perry gonna come point at the camera, tell the cameraman, hey, you see this? Real glass. Go cry me a river. They was in the picture-in-picture replay stuff when all that happened. I'm like, man, okay. So obviously this was stemming from CM Punk flat out telling Jack Perry, nah, man, you stupid. You trying to use real glass to write yourself out just so you can take a damn vacation in Hawaii. And, Jack didn't like that too much. So shortly after that match and that pre-show, Punk, obviously not too thrilled that Jack said that on camera, and we all know who it was directed towards, he ended up going after Jack Perry. I believe reports say that he had tried to choke him out, and then he allegedly lunged at Tony Khan. Joe had to be the mediator and break it up, saying, no, we ain't gonna do this. This is Wembley. We in front of 80,000 people. We ain't gonna do this shit. So Joe had to be the mediator, calm things down, and Joe and Punk had their match, which of course will now end up being CM Punk's final AEW match. A week later, after an investigation, Tony Khan had to announce, both in a pre-tape as well as in front of the Chicago crowd in the United Center, that CM Punk was terminated with cause from AEW, saying that he feared for his life when that incident took place. Let me just say this. I want AEW to still be around because let's just be real with ourselves. Everybody can't be in WWE. And you obviously see what having a company like AEW can do for somebody's career. We was just talking about this crazy, bloody Texas death match between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page. I mean, that was the true arrival of Swerve. He should be a freaking main event level talent after that. And he's going, he's in the Continental Classic tournament now. I'm just saying, he needs to be a world champion next year, man. I'm telling you, Swerve needs to have a run with that title. But see, Swerve never got that type of opportunity in WWE. They had Swerve with Hit Row. That shit wasn't going nowhere. You know what I'm saying? They ended up letting him go. So yes, having AEW around can definitely do wonders for one's career. And Swerve is is having the best run of his whole career right now. So it can definitely do some wrestlers some good. If you're not going to be better utilized one place, you can certainly be utilized better elsewhere. So yes, the purpose of AEW is to be the alternative. But lately, man, I'm telling you, man, AEW is just not hot. It's been cold as ice ever since this whole CM Punk controversy, man. And it's at that point where Tony Khan has lost a lot of goodwill within the fan base, especially him crying over a straight up bitch over the fact that Dynamite got mollywomped by NXT in the ratings on a Tuesday night. When that whole shit with Punk happened at the All Out Media Scrum in 2022, and Khan he was just like a deer in the headlights. He didn't try to stop Phil from what he was doing. He didn't pull Phil to the side. He didn't show no fucking leadership qualities. I ain't gonna lie. I lost a lot of respect for Tony Khan that night. He was made to look like a straight up fucking pussy. That's not a leader. You can have all the fucking money in the world, but all you would ever be is a fucking mark. And I hate saying that because I do like AEW. I do like being able to watch their shows. They have some of the best talent. They have the absolute best talent in the world. But if all you're giving them is just meaningless matches and not much else to go on outside of just, they can have this match. You're pretty much playing in exhibition mode instead of season mode. You know, if you want to use a wrestling video game analogy here. And it's really telling. At the end of the day, man, AEW really, really, really need to get their shit together in the worst fucking way possible. Because now that Punk is no longer in your company and is back with WWE, you also lost Jade Cargill to WWE earlier this year. You lost one of your founding members in Cody last year. AEW needs to turn this whole shit around. And if Tony Khan ain't the one to do it, then get somebody else to run that shit. He can just be the hands-off owner and let somebody else run the day-to-day. He needs his own Triple H. Somebody that can turn this shit around for AEW because clearly he ain't willing to do so. And you think a motherfucking tournament is going to be the one to change people's perception of AEW? AEW's looking like a big-ass fucking joke right now. And with Punk back in the WWE fold, this is going to go down as one of the biggest fuck-ups of any wrestling promotion outside of WWE ever. That's right, Tony. You fucked up. You fucked up, bruh. Because you wanted to side with your fucking EVPs and you wanted to side with all these other people that did not like CM Punk instead of just doing business and finding a way to let them know, hey, this is business. You lost the biggest draw your company has ever had because of feelings instead of business. Tony, hold this L. Hold this L. You need to stop trying to buy your way out of shit, signing ex-WWE talent. Adam Copeland even, Edge, Adam Copeland, he feels like damn near just another guy. Whereas a lot of people were excited about his debut at WrestleDream, now he just feels like another guy, another cog in the wheel. And this is Edge, man. But that's what I'm saying. AEW really needs to get their shit together in 2024. And 2024 is going to be a big, big, big year in pro wrestling. All the free agency, they better hold on to MJF for dear life. Pull the Brinks truck to MJF's house in Long Island. What is it going to take for you to stay here? Okay, this much? All right, Max, you got it. I'm telling you, man, if MJF ends up going, man, I don't know if AEW can ever be taken seriously as a company again. Might as well be Impact level at that point, man. So, yeah, man, it's a crazy, crazy, crazy time in pro wrestling. And I'm going to be here for every step of it, We on our way to the Royal Rumble. We on our way to WrestleMania. Punk is back in WWE. And things have gotten a hell of a lot more interesting. So, folks, that's going to do it for this installment of the Never Say Never WrestleCast. We're in the process of changing our socials so we can be able to reflect the new name change. We're also going to have a new logo. Of course, I got to give a shout out to my man Langston with Ewing Media. He's going to help me out with that. So you're going to see the new look and new name and everything coming soon to our socials. And I got some other stuff cooking in the kitchen, so to speak. I'll let you know about that real soon. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at RealBigDame314. Folks, 2024 is going to go down as one of the biggest years ever. And you better believe I'm here for it all. So until the next podcast, it's your boy Big Dame, and I am OUT. Peace.